So if anybody's got Netflix and they want to learn a little bit more of like the Ukrainian revolution in 2014, Winter on Fire, excellent documentary.
Yeah, I agree. I know about I would say not a large number, but certain people who were interviewed for the interview. I have worked with them personally. In some cases directly, some cases indirectly, as part of the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ruslana, for example, one of the singers, Ukrainian singers who was active during Maidan. Like I worked with her when she was visiting DC, trying to lobby for support here. A number of other politicians as well. So certainly have been contributing to.
Yeah. That's one thing I wanted to ask about. So you helped push forward, I guess, the Ukraine Freedom Support Act, petitioning the U.S. government to support Ukraine, like to be like independent and self-sovereign and everything.
Yeah, there was what I would call the capstone project of the work we've done over the course of the year. Back when this revolution started, the Revolution of Dignity, there was a lot of similar work that's happening, was happening then, is happening right now,
Mm-hmm.
so primarily by volunteers. So there's a lot of work, a lot of help is being done right now, of course, by governments and Ukrainian government, but there's also a really large contingent of volunteers, both providing the support and help for the military as well as the territorial defense forces, all the volunteers, as well as other kind of informational campaigns. So back to the 2014, there was an opportunity to support Ukraine in a really massive way. And
Mm-hmm.
what do I mean by massive? Massive means $250 million to $300 million in support. Both, I believe, was that time it was non-lethal weapons,
Mm-hmm.
and while we volunteers were doing bake sales and other things, raising money, we got a call from this guy in high school. He was working for one of the congressmen, literally a guy in 12th grade. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, hey guys, just want to reach out to you on Facebook. There's this bill that was drafted, but we need constituents to lobby for it, to pass it through, get additional co-sponsors and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And first we're like, is this a joke? But hey, there's a revolution. Ukrainians that took Crimea, it's worth it, right? We got to figure out,
Mm-hmm.
because there we are trying to raise funds to get GPS navigators for Ukrainian pilots, so they
Mm-hmm.
don't fly in paper maps in their MiGs. It was that disarray of a state. And so we met with the guy, and the guy's like, yeah, I'll arrange you. Like, here's congressman, blah blah blah, and like, this is real. Like, let's do it. So we set an agenda of ask the guy, again, high school guy. It's like, what do we do? Right? And he's like, well, here's the plan. You got to get more co-signers. Like, we got a version of the bill in Senate. Then we gotta vote there. We gotta vote there. And in essence, in 30 days, we were able to lobby the Congress, fight Russian propaganda, fight Russian lobbying groups who were doing all this. And it was a team effort. It was only just, I would say, 10 volunteers, including
Mm-hmm.
me, who are actively working this on a daily basis, figuring out how to do this, strategizing Twitter storms, lobbying, going to the Congress, talking to Congress people, trying to work with ambassadors. And at that time, we felt really abandoned by Ukrainian politicians, by Ukrainian embassy. It wasn't clear they're pro-Russian. There was no traction. There was just no interest. So,
Mm-hmm.
Even these like legacy Ukrainian organizations, like Ukrainian Congress of, or Ukrainian Congress of Diaspora, like, it just felt like this legacy nonsense organizations that
Like
just
they were only there in name.
Yeah, just stale. We're like, are you lobbying, or what are you doing? Like, they're like, hey, like, slow down, don't be so bold. Like, there's a protocol. We're like, are you out of your mind? There's a war going on, right? The Russians invaded. There's money sitting there. You're doing nothing. We're gonna do something. And so we're upset. A lot of people were really upset. The diplomats were upset. Embassy was upset. But then, like, we start making traction, and so they're like, crap, they're making traction. So, like, let's meet with them. So, like, we talked.
How can we jump on this?
Yeah, and so the ambassador he was like I'm glad you got attention of congressman, but he was scolding us about like there's a proper way of doing things. I was like, I firebrand. I was like, I don't give a shit. Like
the way you're doing things is not working.
Yeah, I was like, there's $250 million to $300 million in the package that like lethal and non-lethal weapons, and that would actually authorize. That's what enabled Ukraine to get javelins. Like that bill is what enabled javelins to continue being supplied to Ukraine. Like that, our work there. And so I was like, we're doing it. And so, kind of long story short, kind of the anecdotal example that I tell everybody here is like the power of one person of make some contribution is just me going last day in Congress where we had to pass the bill. It was 2014, I believe. Boehner was Speaker of the House, and we had to bring that bill out for the vote. If we did not, then the Congress would go like end of session, right? Then you have to like go to next year. Start lobbying process again. So, and at that time, we had a version of the bill that's ready. Like the Senate passed that day. The Senate's like, yep, we're good, right? Like we voted for the Freedom Support Act. And so House of Representatives had to do the same. And I literally had to go in and knock on doors at like 6 p.m. last day and like beg the Boehner to bring the bill out for the vote. And, the whole story is murky how it all ended. But like 11 o'clock when they're done negotiating for their budget, like they used some procedure to bring, while everybody was in session, they brought in some procedure to like rapidly vote on this bill, and it got passed. Right, like they voted for it, and so then Obama 2 weeks later signed as a law. Right, and like that was it. So anyway, like I am in grand scheme of things an absolute nobody, but drop in the ocean with a bunch of other volunteers, we made like all the difference in the world for people. We got a massive package that really enabled us to do like get javelins to Ukraine. At least they get the war going to get javelins to Ukraine, the first batch.
Did that also eventually? I imagine that also like eventually led to a lot of the military partnerships and the cooperative trainings with the Ukrainian military.
That's what the money was spent on. That's right. Yeah. So the money was for like the non-lethal aid was specifically for this training as well to get Ukraine what they needed kind of in the immediate future, and the training as well as just the money for like, getting defense related training and equipment.
So what were you doing? What were you doing at the time for like work? Like, so you're volunteering here, but was that on the side, or were you like primarily working with like a non-for-profit or something?
Totally on the side. No, that was completely on the side. Just had my day job, and this was all nights and weekends, for like years straight. I probably booked maybe 600 hours, nights and weekends work during that year.
Damn.
From fighting Russian propaganda to doing all kinds of Twitter storms, like all the weekends, all the nights was just that. It's all we did, because that was the right thing to do. It was, like you cannot see a revolution happening and do nothing about it, just like you cannot see the war happening and do nothing about it right now. Same thing, right? And at that time we knew that if we didn't fight, we'd be oppressed under Russia. And you're gonna, so I'll give you an example where that has happened. Sure, Belarus had a similar Maidan revolution, attempted revolution 6 months ago. Was it 9 months ago? And so this
within
is
this
what
past
happens.
year. Lukashenko's still there, and that's where his military is, and they're forced to set the fire into a country that they have actually no beef with. I think like 80% of their hospitals, or it's either 80% of their hospitals or 80% of their like their blood supplies are being exhausted because they're being used specifically for Russian soldiers. And it's like, fuck your citizenry, I guess, because you've got Putin's cock in your mouth.
Well, right, and it's like what's happening now. It's like Putin is not gonna get Ukraine, but he's now gonna get Belarus. It's very sad for the people of Belarus. By the way, I learned should not be called Belarusian. They're people of Belarus, and it's sad. But this is what happens when you give up the fight or you don't get rid of the dictator.